Good evening everybody, Tokyo Drew 85 here, and I'm back with another top 10 video. This time I'm going to do top 10 Zelda Dungeons. Now, throughout playing the games, throughout the course of my history with the series, these are the 10 dungeons that stood out to me in one way or another. Whether it was the design, the theme, the music, there was always something that just stood out about these dungeons, and even when I play them today, I enjoy replaying them. Number 10 is the Color Dungeon in Link's Awakening. When the Game Boy Color came out, the DX version of the game came out, they added the Color Dungeon as an extra, and that's like one of my first times I experienced, DLC in the game, where they added a whole new dungeon, and it was a pretty decent addition. You could pretty much enter it probably after doing the third dungeon at the earliest, and the cool thing about it is it played the original dungeon music from the first Zelda. It had a good theme and atmosphere. You get to it from the graveyard. You had a couple of mini bosses, and then in the end, you get a choice between two armor sets: the red and the blue armor, the red for offense and blue for defense. And I just thought that was cool. That not only did they make the game color, but they also added a whole extra dungeon in there too. And that's something you didn't really see back then, and the fact that they did it was awesome. In the number 9 spot, we have the Temple of Time in Twilight Princess. Getting to it was cool. Hey, you had to go back into the woods, put the Master Sword back in to open the door. And the dungeon just had a really cool theme to it. I liked the whole puzzle-solving aspect, where you had to use the command rod to move all the statues around. Some people would think it was annoying, but I thought it was a really cool idea. It had a great balance between puzzle-solving and action, because also, that was one of the first times you fought Dark Nuts in Twilight Princess, too. Yeah, it's a great dungeon. And again, when I play through Twilight Princess, I look forward to going through that dungeon again. Number 8, the Bottom of the Well, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's funny, it seems like a weird pick, because it's kind of like a mini dungeon, it's not a full dungeon. Because Ocarina of Time has like 2 mini dungeons, you have the well and the ice cavern. But I always thought the Bottom of the Well over the Shadow Temple, the Bottom of the Well was a little creepier, because you do the dungeon when you're a kid, and also when, depending on when you do the Shadow Temple, you see that cutscene where the unseen demon kind of breaks the seal and then breaks out of the well, which unleashes the demon in the Shadow Temple. So going there when you're a kid was always a little creepy. You play the Song of Storms to the guy in the windmill, which drains the well, which gives you access, and there was always just a creepy atmosphere in there. You had the music from the Shadow Temple, and you had all these like set pieces in there, like you had little blood stains here and there, and you had like the little torture devices here and there laying around. And also the basement I thought was really creepy too, because if you look on the map, the basement of the well is shaped like a hand. And everything about it was just so cool. There was just like a mini boss, and you get the Eye of Truth. But I thought that was a great setup to the Shadow Temple, and I always thought it was an awesome dungeon to play through. Number 7, Tower of the Gods, Wind Waker. It's funny because I'm actually playing this game through today again. I'm playing the game most of the day today, so it's fresh in my memory. The Tower of Gods is a great dungeon. Like, even the setup for it, how you get all the 3 pearls, you put them in the statues, it opens up the giant Triforce in the ocean. You have the water rising up and down. It's like got this mysterious theme playing in the background, and everything looks so good too. It's a very unique looking dungeon, like the Temple of Time in Twilight Princess. It's got great music, great puzzle solving, and it all culminates with a great boss fight at the end. So again, very, very good dungeon, and also very pivotal to the story too. We learn a lot about what happened to Hyrule in the past and why the whole kingdom had to be sunk underneath the ocean afterwards. Number 6, the Spirit Temple in Ocarina of Time. I always loved playing through the Spirit Temple, especially when you first get there when you're an adult. It's funny because you look to the left and look to the right, and there's really nowhere you can go. You have like a crawl space and then a block where you need a silver gauntlet. So it was always cool that you had to like do the temple in 2 parts. You had to go back in time and do part of it as a child, and then go back in again to do the other half as an adult. I always thought that was a really good idea and a really great design, so you could experience the dungeon as both a child and an adult. And it was always, again, I love the music in the Spirit Temple. Just something about it felt very grand. It's just a really cool dungeon. You get the silver gauntlets and the mirror shield. And the fight with Twin Rover, I always love doing that fight. It's an awesome boss fight. Using the mirror shield to repel her magic attacks and her 2 boss phases. I thought it was a very, very good dungeon. So in the number 5 spot, we have the Temple of Droplets from The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. Now, I feel like a lot of people don't talk about the portable Zelda too much. Minish Cap, I thought it was a decent Zelda. Not really top tier Zelda, but it was definitely a cool game, especially how you had the Minish Cap and the whole mechanic of shrinking yourself down. Something about the theme was just so fitting for the dungeon. Like, it had this kind of like mysterious, kind of dark theme. It was a Minish dungeon, so it's one of those dungeons where like you're really small, and the boss winds up being like just like a regular sized enemy, which I always thought was so cool, because the boss is just an Octorok. And they did the same thing in the first dungeon where like the boss was a choo-choo. So I thought the whole mechanic of the whole shaking mechanic was good in general, and I feel like Capcom did a good job at like exploring with it and like really diving into it. Like it didn't feel like an add-on. Like it felt like a legitimate mechanic that wasn't half-assed. So again, I thought that was a very good dungeon. In the number 4 spot, we have the Great Bay Temple and Majora's Mask. Now, Majora's Mask is just one of my top 5 Zelda games. Like I love Majora's Mask. And the Great Bay Temple is just an awesome temple. It's got great design, great music. I feel like it's harder than the Water Temple. I know a lot of people don't talk about that, but the whole mechanic of changing the currents to access different parts of the dungeon, I thought was a little more advanced than the multiple water levels in the Water Temple. And you do the whole thing as a Zora, and you have the boss fight with the frog. Even the boss fight too with Goyorg was a decent boss fight. Not like the greatest boss fight, but still pretty good. But overall, the dungeon is just great. It's got great music. It's got a great design. And again, it's one of those dungeons where like if I'm playing Majora's Mask, I look forward to doing it. Number 3, we're going back to the Eagle Tower in Link's Awakening. Now the Eagle Tower, I remember struggling with when I was a kid, because always trying to, pretty much getting to the 4th floor is impossible unless you knock down the 3rd floor into the 4th floor. And that was great. That's like a really advanced mechanic I haven't even seen in like the newer Zeldas. Honestly, I feel like the newer Zeldas, the dungeons kind of got easier and easier. It's an open map, but they're kind of deceptively linear. Like I felt like Link's Awakening still was like open. Like you had to like grab that ball, go around knocking down the pillars. Like I remember me trying to figure that out when I was a kid. I'm even surprised I did figure it out. I just thought that was a very advanced mechanic that you haven't even seen again, because I know Link to the Past had nothing like that. And subsequent Zeldas haven't really had something like that advanced, where you pretty much knock a floor into another floor, they get to the top. And I thought that was just phenomenal. Like figuring that out was just so satisfying. And then you had the little creepy music in the background. You had Kirby as like a basic enemy, which is really funny because I know you had a lot of Mario enemies in that game, but seeing Kirby just thrown in there was pretty funny. And then all culminating in the boss fight with the Great Eagle. You know, you fight him at the top in like a 2D action segment, and it was good. It was a really great dungeon and boss fight. Then the number 2 spot, we have the Tower of Hera in A Link to the Past. Now there's like a ton of dungeons in A Link to the Past, but like it's so hard probably just to pick one. But the Tower of Hera always stuck out to me, strictly because when you're going to the Tower of Hera, you have to use the magic mirror for the first time. And when you use the mirror for the first time, you get sent to the Dark World. You see yourself as like a bunny, and then you get your first glimpse of the Dark World when you go to the map, and that gives you like a hint that there's a whole other half of the game like you're not even aware of yet. And then you finally get there, and you have to climb this really tall tower all the way to the top, and you gotta fight this annoying worm that keeps bouncing you off the floor, and if you bounce off, you have to do the whole boss fight over again. But mainly like the first glimpse of the Dark World always just set my imagination wild when I was a kid, just seeing that. And then getting to the Tower of Hera, fighting that worm boss, and getting the last pendant to get the Master Sword. It was always just such a memorable experience, and that's always something that sticks with me today. And then the number 1 spot, again, this was a tough list to make, because there's so many great dungeons throughout the whole series of Zelda, but the number 1 spot being the Stone Tower Temple, Majora's Mask. And I feel like it's extremely well deserved. Even getting to the Stone Tower Temple is a chore. You learn the Eulogy of Emptiness. You have to make your way up that huge stone tower. I mean, that part is a little redundant, playing the song over and over again. But then when you finally get to the stone tower, it just feels like a feat all in itself. Like you get there, you're working through the dungeon, and then you have to get the light arrows, and you flip the dungeon over. Again, it's like one of those mechanics I wish I'd seen more in the later games. You pretty much have to do the dungeon, you know, upside down to complete it. And then if you really want to get all the fairies, you got to flip it over and then flip it back over again. And again, it's one of those like advanced dungeon mechanics that I wish I saw later in the series. And again, just the music, the atmosphere, and then getting the Giant's Mask and fighting Twin Mold. Like again, it just all culminated in a great dungeon and a great experience. So anyway, guys, this is my top 10 Zelda dungeons. I look forward to making this video. And I hope you guys like and subscribe, and have a good night. Thank you.